What would you do if you woke up one morning and everything you worked for, everything you built, everything you loved was gone? Not because of bad luck, not because of the economy, not because someone betrayed you, but because of your own choices, your own habits, your own blindness to what was slipping away while you chased something that didn't matter. If you've ever felt like you're on the edge of losing it all, or if you've already lost something important and don't know how to rebuild, then stay with me, because this is the story of a man who had everything, lost everything, and found something more valuable than what he lost. Not through motivation, not through willpower, but through one simple habit that most people never discover until it's too late. This story changed my life, and it might just save yours. His name was David, 42 years old, and 6 months ago he was on top of the world. He had built a successful consulting business from nothing, 15 years of grinding, hustling, networking, late nights, early mornings. His company had 30 employees, revenue was hitting 7 figures. He had the dream, the big house in the suburbs, luxury car in the driveway, beautiful wife named Elena, 2 kids, Sophie, age 10, and Max, age 7. On paper, David had won at life. But here's what nobody saw. David was never home. Not really. Even when he was physically there, his mind was at work. Emails at the dinner table, conference calls during his daughter's dance recital, working on his laptop while his son asked him to play. "Just give me 5 minutes, buddy. Daddy has to finish this." 5 minutes became an hour became a pattern became years. Elena tried to tell him, "David, you're missing their childhood. You're missing us." But David didn't hear her. He heard complaints. He heard someone who didn't understand what it took to build something, to provide, to succeed. "Everything I do is for this family," he'd say. "Do you think this house pays for itself? Do you think their private school is free?" And he'd go back to work, convincing himself he was the hero of his own story, the provider, the winner, the success. But then the cracks started showing. His health deteriorated. Stress, no exercise, fast food in the car between meetings. He gained 40 pounds. His doctor warned him about his blood pressure, his cholesterol. "You're headed for a heart attack if you don't change." David nodded, said he'd work on it, and scheduled another meeting. His employees started leaving. The culture he'd built became toxic because he was toxic, always stressed, always pushing, never satisfied. Good people quit. Clients started noticing the quality dropping. But David kept pushing, harder, faster, more. "If I can just get through this quarter, if I can just land this contract, if I can just..." And then it all collapsed. It started with Elena. One Tuesday evening, David came home at 11 p.m. after another urgent meeting. The house was quiet. He found a note on the kitchen table. "David, I can't do this anymore. I've been living like a single parent for 5 years. The kids ask me where you are. I don't know what to tell them anymore. I asked you to come to therapy. You said you were too busy. I asked you to take 1 weekend off. You said it was impossible. I'm taking the kids to my sister's for a while. We need space. You need to figure out what you actually want, because this isn't a marriage. This isn't a family. This is you, your work, and people waiting for you to show up. I hope you find what you're looking for. Elena." David read it 3 times. His first thought wasn't sadness, it was anger. "I'm doing this for them. Why doesn't she understand?" His second thought was panic, but not about losing his family, about how this would look. What would people say? What would his clients think? He called Elena, voicemail. He called again, voicemail. He texted, no response. He poured a drink, then another, then sat in his empty house surrounded by expensive furniture and silence. The next morning, hungover and exhausted, David went to work like nothing happened. He had a presentation to deliver, a meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. Life goes on. But it didn't. Within 2 weeks, his biggest client dropped him. They'd heard rumors about instability. They needed someone reliable. Within a month, 3 more clients followed. Within 2 months, his company was bleeding money. Employees he couldn't pay quit. Employees he could pay didn't want to stay. David tried to save it. He worked even more hours. He made promises he couldn't keep. He blamed everyone, the market, his team, Elena for distracting him. But deep down, in the quiet moments at 3 a.m. when he couldn't sleep, he knew the truth. He'd built his success on sand, and the tide had come in. 6 months after Elena left, David's company folded. Bankruptcy. The house went into foreclosure, the car got repossessed, his savings gone, paying debts, his reputation destroyed. His family? A text message every few weeks about seeing the kids. David, at 42, moved into a tiny studio apartment with borrowed furniture and a mattress on the floor. Everything he'd built for 15 years gone in 6 months. And for the first time in his adult life, he had nothing to do. Nowhere to be, no meetings, no calls, no urgency, just silence and himself and the crushing weight of what he'd lost. The first month in that apartment, David didn't leave except to buy food. He'd wake up at noon, lay in bed, scrolling his phone, looking at LinkedIn posts from people still living the life he used to have. He'd order takeout, watch TV until his eyes hurt, sleep fitfully, wake up, repeat. He wasn't living, he was hiding from the world, from himself, from the truth. One morning, he woke up and realized he couldn't remember what day it was. Tuesday? Thursday? It didn't matter. He had nowhere to be, no one needed him, no one was waiting. He walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The man staring back was a stranger, overweight, exhausted, broken, eyes empty. And for the first time, David asked himself a question he'd been avoiding his entire adult life. Who am I without my success, without my company, without my title, without my achievements? The answer terrified him. I don't know. He sat on the edge of his mattress and cried for the first time since he was a child. Not quiet tears, sobbing, shaking, years of buried pain erupting. He cried for his marriage, for his kids growing up without him, for the 15 years he'd wasted chasing something he couldn't even define, for the man he'd become, for the man he'd failed to be. When the tears stopped, something shifted. Not hope, not motivation, just clarity. A simple thought. I can't keep living like this. That afternoon, David did something he hadn't done in years. He went for a walk. No destination, no purpose, just walking. The sun was out, birds were singing, people were living their lives, and David realized he'd forgotten what the world looked like when you weren't racing through it. He walked past a small bookstore. On impulse, he went inside. The smell of old books, quiet, peaceful. He wandered the aisles and found himself in the self-help section. Normally, he would have sneered at these books, motivational garbage for weak people who couldn't figure life out. But David wasn't normal anymore. He was desperate. He picked up a thin book, simple cover, the title, Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. He almost put it back, but something made him buy it. That night, instead of TV, David read, and one sentence stopped him cold. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. He read it again, and it hit him like a truck. He'd spent 15 years chasing goals, more revenue, bigger clients, nicer house, better car. But he'd never built systems, healthy systems, sustainable systems, systems for his health, for his relationships, for his peace. He'd built a business on hustle and chaos, and when the chaos consumed him, there was nothing underneath to hold it up. David kept reading. The book talked about identity-based habits, not doing things to achieve a goal, but doing things to become a certain type of person. Not, I want to lose weight, but I am someone who takes care of their body. Not, I want to be successful, but I am someone who shows up consistently. And then David read about the concept of a keystone habit,
One small habit that when you do it consistently creates a cascade of positive changes in other areas of your life. He thought about his life, the chaos, the stress, the lack of control. What if there was one habit, just one, that could start rebuilding him from the inside out? That night, David made a decision. Tomorrow morning, no matter how he felt, he would do one thing, just one, 5 minutes, and he would do it every single day for 30 days. He would journal. Not goals, not plans, not strategies, just write down 3 things. What am I grateful for today? What did I learn yesterday? Who do I want to be today? It seemed too simple, too small to matter, but David had nothing left to lose, and maybe, just maybe, simple was exactly what he needed. Day 1. David's alarm went off at 7 a.m. His first instinct was to turn it off and go back to sleep, but he'd made a promise. He sat up, grabbed the cheap notebook he'd bought, and stared at the blank page. What am I grateful for? His mind went blank. Grateful? For what? He'd lost everything. But he forced himself to write something. Anything. 1. I woke up today. I'm still alive. 2. I have a roof over my head. 3. I can still see my kids, even if it's not often. What did I learn yesterday? Rock bottom is a place to build from, not a place to stay. Who do I want to be today? Someone who doesn't give up. 5 minutes, that's all it took. David closed the notebook. It felt awkward, pointless, but he'd done it. Day 3. The entries were slightly longer. Grateful for the sun this morning, coffee, my daughter answering my text. Day 7. Something weird happened. David woke up before his alarm, not because he had to, because his brain was already thinking about what he'd write. He'd started paying attention during the day, looking for things to be grateful for. Day 12. David added something new. After journaling, he did 10 push-ups, just 10. It was all he could manage, but he did them. Day 18. He noticed he was eating better, not because he planned to, but because when he journaled, "Who do I want to be today?" and wrote, "Someone who respects their body," it made him think twice before ordering pizza for the 3rd time that week. Day 25. Elena called. They talked for 20 minutes, really talked. He listened instead of defending. She said, "You sound different." He didn't tell her about the journal. He just said, "I'm trying." Day 30. David looked back at his first entry. "I'm still alive." He smiled. A month ago, that was the best he could come up with. Now his gratitude list filled half a page. Small things, real things. The barista who remembered his order, a stranger who smiled, the fact that he did 50 push-ups this morning. But the real change wasn't the journal, it was who he was becoming. The journal was just the keystone, the one habit that made other habits possible. 3 months later, David got a job. Not glamorous, account manager at a small firm, a fraction of what he used to make. But he showed up every day, did his work, went home, and didn't let work consume him. He started going to therapy, actually showed up, actually talked, started unpacking the years of damage. He asked Elena if he could see the kids more. She was hesitant, but she agreed to supervised visits. David showed up early, played with them. No phone, no distractions. When Max asked him to build Legos, he built Legos. When Sophie wanted to show him her drawings, he looked at every single one. After the 3rd visit, Sophie hugged him and whispered, "I missed you, Daddy." David cried in his car for 20 minutes after they left. 6 months later, David moved into a better apartment. Nothing fancy, but clean, safe. He'd lost 30 pounds, started running, not to punish himself, because he liked who he was becoming. His journal was now 3 notebooks deep, every single morning, without fail, 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes had changed everything.
Here's what David learned that most people never understand until it's too late. You don't lose everything in one moment. You lose it slowly. One missed dinner, one ignored conversation, one just 5 more minutes at work, one choice to put achievement over presence, over and over and over until the people you love stop asking you to show up because they know you won't. David thought he was building a legacy. He was building a prison. But here's the other truth. You also don't rebuild everything in one moment. You rebuild it slowly. One morning, one choice, one small habit, one moment of showing up when it's hard, over and over and over until the person you want to be becomes the person you are. David's keystone habit was journaling. Yours might be different. Maybe it's 5 minutes of meditation. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's a morning walk. Maybe it's reading one page. Maybe it's texting someone you love. Maybe it's just drinking a glass of water before coffee. It doesn't matter what the habit is. What matters is that you do it every single day, no matter what. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, but because you're becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. And when you become someone who keeps promises to themselves, everything else becomes possible. Right now, you have a choice. You can wake up tomorrow the same person you were today, making the same choices, falling into the same patterns, losing the same things slowly, until one day you wake up and everything you care about is gone and you can't remember when it's slipping away. Or you can choose one habit, just one, 5 minutes, something so small it feels ridiculous, and you can do it tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and the morning after that. Not to achieve a goal, not to fix everything, but to become someone different, someone who shows up, someone who keeps promises, someone who builds their life on a foundation that can't be shaken. David lost everything: his business, his money, his house, his family, his identity. And in that loss, he found something he'd been missing his entire life: himself. The real him, not the title, not the achievement, not the success, just him. And from that foundation, he built a life that actually mattered. You don't have to lose everything to find this. You can start right now. Tonight, before you sleep, choose your keystone habit. Write it down, set your alarm 5 minutes earlier, and tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything else, do that one thing. Do it for 30 days and watch what happens. Not to your life, to you. The man who lost everything didn't lose everything. He lost everything that didn't matter and found the one thing that did. Your one habit is waiting. Your new life is waiting. The only question is, will you show up for it? Wake up different, stay consistent, keep building.